Hello, hello. Couple minutes late. That's pretty much habitual. Don't get mad. Let's get the audio check done. And we got a ride to go on today from a 1,100 and something book. It's over 1,100 pages. And I know, hey, Matt Kubas, hey, Matt, you're one of the perfect people to pop in here right now. My original Archaix OG's been with me for a long time. I remember the days. Oh, Victoria's in the chat too. Oh, I got all kinds of people coming back. What's going on? I seen you on pop up on Twitter today, Vic. Many of you, 4.5, 5 years ago, some of you 3 years ago, popped in on one of my live chats, and you were just flabbergasted. Who is this southern corn-fed raised hillbilly in Central East Texas? Who is this guy spitting out these dates, all this material, sequentially, ex post facto, forward and backward in time, and when you verify it with a calculator, after hundreds of presentations, not one single date has changed? Who is this guy going out talking about Graham Hancock is wrong? Who is this guy correcting Billy Carson? Who is this guy drawing by hand all these charts, putting all this material out, and it was blowing people's minds because they had never heard this data before? And yet, who is this redneck throwing out all these names, titles of books, dates of publications, giving us the page numbers, and then effing us up every once in a while by doing a video like I'm doing today where I show you the pages from a 300-year-old book and what it says? Who is this guy? I haven't changed a bit. I'm still the same guy I was when I had 12 people consistently in my live chats. I haven't changed a bit. Unfortunately, neither has my audio or my visuals or my technology or none of that. But you know what? Who is this guy that's calling everybody out? What's going on? This is one of those books. That's why I did this intro the way I did. It's a freestyle intro, but I kind of planned it about an hour ago. I said, man, that's how I'm going to start my video. Who is this guy? Because especially my Archaix veterans are going to be floored by the information in this book. You think Archaix brought new things to the table, but I've been telling you for 5 years, all I'm doing is bringing you back into the field what was known by scholarship 6, 5, 4, and 300 years ago. That's all Archaix is about. I really don't have anything new to offer. All I'm doing is showing new eyes and new minds, very old things that were already well established. And it's blowing people's minds because they can't process how badly they've been miseducated. Terrible miseducation. Yeah, man. I keep wanting to give people the benefit of the doubt. I keep wanting to give other researchers and other YouTubers like, man, I keep wanting to back off. But then when I see new presentations popping up, I'm like, shit, they're never going to stop with this madness, this control system. My God, this uniformitarianism has completely brainwashed a few generations of authors, researchers, and scientists. So when they make things up, they're all on board with each other because they all borrow from the same false paradigm. It is so crazy. I'm beating my head up against a wall. Yeah, I'm on this East Texas country Wi-Fi. I'm way out in the middle of the country, guys. I've always had problems with Wi-Fi. So that's what this presentation is. We're going to do it. I'm going to show you. That's what it is. But there's one page out of this 1,100 and something page book. I'm not going to show it to you in this presentation because this page has data on it that's so profound it earns a video all by itself. And it's something that I've been telling you guys about. Man, it is absolute proof from the historical record that we are living in a simulated construct. And it's coming out of a 300-year-old book. Yeah, that video's coming real fast too, because I've already revealed much of this to you, but only in pieces. And you guys have been saying, Jason, talk more about that. You said this, man, talk more about that. Well, I can talk more about it now because this book gave me the business. Thank you to whoever it was on Twitter that posted the PDF to this book on my feed, because when I saw it was 1,147 pages, something like that, I wasn't daunted at all. I was intrigued because it was so old, from the year 1740. How come I have never seen this book? How come I have never seen any other YouTubers, anybody else talk about this book? So I spent about 6 days. And in the evenings before I went to sleep, I read the book. I'll be damned. You guys are about to get the business. Meanwhile, I'm gonna keep my announcements real short. So I did a tutorial video showing my Cypher community how easy it was using the new software to do personal and professional predictions. And most of our hurdles that we need to pass now are in sports predictions and in the markets. So this is where we're going. We're going deep on some stuff on that. But when it comes to personal and professional predictions, the software's already developed. It's there. It's already being used by people in the group. So I did a tutorial. Tomorrow, I'm going live with the Cypher community to actually do predictions for their dates, to show them how easy it is to use the software to do predictions in their personal life, where they can use the software to do predictions for other people, to do predictions in their professional life, corporate life. It's all good. So I'm doing that tomorrow. Today's the last day. There's only a few exceptions, and that's because people have reached out to me and told me exactly why they can't do anything till the first, second, or third, or whatever. But other than that, we're shutting the door tonight, midnight. We're just done taking in new people to Cypher. I have my group. Today is the last day, so you got till midnight, and then we're shutting that down. The Telegram group is fantastic. I've been in there the past 2 days. It's the first time I've ever been able to get Telegram on my studio. I've always been done Telegram on my phone, so I never really participated. I get in there, I get frustrated, it's too small. But one of the admins in Cypher taught me, showed me the instructions on how to interface it with my laptop. And now I'm engaging because I can see everything in Telegram on my laptop. It's beautiful. I like it. It's not like Discord at all. I thought it was a lot like Discord because I don't like Discord. But anyway, that's the Cypher announcement. Archaix for Kids. 1,048 pages, the PDF. The link is in the description box. Chronicon, still getting emails. I don't know why it's so hard. I'm not trying to get on your asses, guys, but why is it so difficult to look at a description box? My description boxes have all these links and the titles to the links. Why am I getting all these emails? Hey, I want to download Chronicon. Hey, I want to download Archaix for Kids. Hey, I'm trying to find Reawaken the Immortal Within. All my last videos, every single one of them, have in the description box the links for everything you're asking me for. So that's about it. We got a bunch of links. There's a lot more links in the description box, but those are the main three that people are interested in right now. So our errant ad sponsor for this video, she does workshops. She does free consultations. She does paid consultations. She's an ontological life coach. She has a pretty impressive website. She has a lot of history doing what she does. I'm going to be absolutely honest with you. I guess that's a counselor of some type, a life coach. I don't really know a lot about it, but I don't have to know a lot about what you do when you sponsor a video like she did. So here it is right here. Here is our errant sponsor of the day before we start this presentation. And as is our habit, we will show her advertisement again at the end of the video. And her information, which is only a link to her website, which is pretty impressive, is in the description box as well. It's a matter of fact, it's before all my links.
Why do some leaders inspire exceptional results, build engaged teams without the burnout? It's not luck. I know because I've been there. When you connect to your deeper inner purpose of life and you embrace your free spirit, you unlock true leadership. Break free or die trying.
That was Jacqueline. Let's see. I'm sorry, Jacqueline. I cannot pronounce your last name. She is in the chat right now. I just can't pronounce it. Her link is in the description box for www.inheduana.com. That almost sounds Sumerian. .au. Would that be Australia? I don't know. But the link is in the description box. You want to go check her out. Hoffs, I guess is the last name. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. But thank you, Jacqueline, for that. And we will revisit that ad at the end of the video. Announcements are over. Ad is done. And yes, there's one page, guys, just one, missing from this whole entire presentation. I'm not going to show it in this video because it merits its own video. That's how profound this one page. When I read this page and saw two different Archaix related items on there, and both of them absolutely support repetitive timelines and simulation theory, it blew my mind. I set the page aside. I put it with a bunch of other notes, older Archaix notes, things you guys have been asking me about that I haven't returned to for lack of more specific information. Well, I have that more specific information now. I'm going to blow your mind with a single chart video that shows time going forward and backward, almost like a sphere, showing you everything about the Great Pyramid, how it fits in. It all comes from this 1,147 page book from 1740. I got validation. That's a separate video. Let's go through this video right now. Oh yeah, Nelson, you're gonna like it. You're gonna like it. That one page blew my mind. I'm gonna show it to you in the next video. I'm doing a video all by itself for it. Meanwhile, let's share my screen. Let's get to it. How do we say it? Let's do it. All right. So, I don't know why we got to go through so many protocols to share my screen. You should be seeing a list of 40 items. There's 40 images on the screen. Okay, good. You see it. And of course, Microsoft is going to pop up with this stupid AI newsreel. There's just no way to get rid of that off my computer. It just pops up. Don't give a damn about mainstream media. So this is the book. And because the information is just so meticulous, I'm just going to go in order. There's no reason to skip around and try to organize this data. We're just going to go in order as it was written almost 300 years ago and published in 1740. What I find interesting is that this book was published exactly 300 years before the return of the Phoen-ix in 2040. This is 1740. And what the book contains makes that little factoid relevant. Process that. Somebody said Rhino was in the chat. Jonathan, you get your ass back to Texas. I got work for you to do, man. Quit playing around over there in Arkansas. And universal history from the earliest account of time to the present, compiled from the original authors. Remember, this is the transitional period, late 1600s into the mid 1750s, 60s, the transitional time when some French was still found in the English. You're going to see a lot of F's where it's supposed to be S's. So from the earliest account of time to the present, compiled from the original authors and illustrated with maps, cuts, notes, chronological, and other tables. That's a long title, but that's the title of the book. Here's the date. MDCCXL 1740 at the bottom. That's the date. Still using Roman numerals. in the 1740s to date. Publications. Published in London. So, this is in the prelude before the book even starts. Now, to say something of the different computations of time, Berosus wrote his chronology by the computation of Sari, Neri, and Sosi. This would be Shars. Yeah, Sari and Neri are Shars and Ners. You've seen those in Archaix over and over. I don't know what Sosis are. I don't even know what that is. Which being ancient measures of time and well known when the original records were written, could not then have wanted explanation. But Berosus, or some later writer, has either out of ignorance or design magnified these measures beyond all imagination. Did you hear that? What Jason of Archaix has been telling you for 5 years is that Zechariah Sitchin, Eric von Däniken, even Michael Tellinger, Billy Carson, Matt LaCroix, so many of them have taken those long numbers of the Babylonian because of Berosus' mistake and are calling them hundreds of thousands of years. This man is telling you in 1740, Berosus made a mistake. He says, but Berosus, or some later writer, has either out of ignorance or design magnified these measures beyond all imagination and tells us that Shars contain the interval of 3,600 years, the Ner of 600, and the Sosus of 60. He's literally telling us these Shars are not 3,600 years. They are not 36,000 years. They're not 360,000 years at all. There's something else. So we're still in the preface. But other authors have taken those years for days. Man, hold up. Other authors have taken those years for days. Remember, this is almost 300-year-old book. And indeed, with a great deal of reason, for not to insist on the incredible length of the reigns of the Chaldean princes. In the first hypothesis, which no writer of common sense could offer to impose on the world, it plainly appears that they were no more than days. Therefore, the famous text that the Great Flood happened in the 432nd thousandth shar of the pre-flood world literally means that the Great Flood happened in the 432nd thousandth day, which is only 12 centuries. And other traditions support that, because they literally say from Vulcan, which is Enoch, Enki, from Vulcan to the flood was exactly 1,200 years. And to find these in this old book, all right, so we will move on. Let's see. Fixed hours of the Egyptians with some supposition. However, Moses says Mophis, but it means Moses. However, here it is. Some calendars in the ancient world divided the year into 13 moons, 13 months. See, the Egyptians had a different system. However, Moses, by express command of God, did afterwards compute the years by moons. Graham Hancock and Jimmy Corsetti better come to the table, because we have another 300-year-old source that says that ancient calendars, the years were equal to moons. Solon's 9,000 years is 9,000 moons, putting the Atlantis war and destruction exactly where Plato has it, against Athens, which was founded in 1365 BC. So the 14th century to the 12th century destruction of Atlantis is perfect only when you go by the way the Egyptians counted years. A moon, a month, 30 days was a year. That's what he's saying right here, which he'll reiterate in a minute. The ancient year of Greece, Lydia, and the Grecian colonies in Asia, as well as the first Roman year before the correction of Numa Pompilius, consisted likewise of 360 days. As the learned writer we have quoted above fully proves. You know why this is very interesting? Because he literally tells us that all these civilizations had a 360-day calendar until the correction of Numa Pompilius. When was Numa Pompilius a king of Rome? He was a king of Rome in the year 713 BC. Yeah, process that. That's in Chronicon. Numa Pompilius, according to this guy, was the one that changed the calendar from 360 days. He had to, because in 713 BC, the calendar changed to 365.25 days. And that is what altered the ecliptic and created the Aries through Pisces zodiac. Because prior to that, the zodiac was lunar, and it was Orion, Canis Major, Canis Minor. It was Arcturus, the seven sisters, the Pleiades, Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, and Alpha Draconis Thuban. Totally different ecliptic, totally different movement of the sky. So compelling. Besides the computation of months and years, the Greeks reckoned their time by Olympiads, each Olympiad containing the space of 4 years. This method of computation had its rise from the Olympic Games, which were celebrated every 4th year and became so considerable that the Greeks made them their epic. They commenced, according to some, the year of the world, 3208, being 776 years before Christ. That is exactly where scholarship places the beginning of the Greek Olympiad calendar, 776 BC. Okay, for they held that the world was subject to certain revolutions, wherein it became transformed, and a new age and generation began. Of such generations there were in all, according to them, 8, differing one from another in customs and way of life, each having a duration of a number of years assigned them by God, and determined by the period which they called the Great Year. The Great Year was 600 years. In the ancient world, it was 216,000 days. This reference here is a reference to the ancient belief in basically reset cycles, cyclical history. Let's see. Unless under proper restrictions, it will be no hard matter to prove that America was peopled immediately by the posterity of Noah, as some have alleged. Yeah, he goes deep in the biblical material and shows you how some of the people in the genealogical record never ever again appear anywhere in the Old Testament. And he says these people didn't cease to exist. They must have went somewhere else and became these people. And he goes through the Inca, the Maya, he goes through all the different American culture and says this is the connection. All these families after the Tower of Babel incident vanished from the biblical record, never to be mentioned again. So they must have went somewhere else. And he goes in there talking about all these ancient traditions and stuff about how the Americas were peopled shortly after the Great Flood, and they were peopled by the direct descendants of Noah, Noah's family. Remember, the old world that we're familiar with was not peopled by Noah's immediate family after the flood, because Noah was banished after the flood by the children of his own sons. Noah was considered a titan. He was a threat because Noah and Naamah were having babies that were growing to gigantic sizes because they were of pre-flood genetics. After the flood, after the collapse of the vapor canopy, the entire world had changed. So the Titans were giving birth. They were just normal humans that were huge. They were giving birth to giants, not as big as the Titans, but the children of the giants were the grandchildren of the Titans, and they were super tiny. And the grandchildren looked up and saw their own moms and dads as being gigantic, but their grandparents were titanic, and they panicked and they banished Noah and Naamah. And from Noah and Naamah and Naamah's daughter's blood came forth the races of giants, the Anakim, the Amorites, the Rephaim, the Zuzums, the Zamzumums, the Emams, the Horims and the Avims in the Old Testament. These races of giants were painted evil by a patriarchal culture that had taken over taken over all the matrilinear societies. But they had demonized these people. But when this is in the biblical material, they're demonized. But in the historical record, people looked up to these giants. People looked up to the sons of Anak. As a matter of fact, 318 Anakim, the direct progeny of Noah and Naamah after the flood, they helped Abram. It's the only way Abram was able to rescue Lot when King Chedorlaomer of Elam and his confederation with Amraphel of Babylon and Tudal of the Hittite kingdom and Arioch of Mitanni, when they took Sodom and Gomorrah, they took Abram's nephew captive with his family. The only way Abram was able to defeat that army was because he had the descendants of Noah and Naamah after the flood. Well, the descendants of Noah and Naamah are banished. This is one of the greatest stories from the ancient Greek world. It is the banishment of the Titans. They weren't guilty of anything. They were sent to the far, far west. That's what it's called. Far, far west. The actual translation is Tartarus. Tartarus means the far, far west. So this is where they were sent. Later on, because it was discovered they were on the other side of the world, it became contorted, and they were on the bottom of the world. Next thing you know, centuries go by, Tartarus became a synonym for hell, the underworld, but it never was. It was the other world, which was the Americas. It was populated by the Titans. That's where they fled. This is in a lot of old books that I've showed in Archaix. The general history of the flood. Oh, this is what I wanted to show you here. This is Adam, Seth, Enos, Canaan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and Adam. This is how biblical scholars, the life and death rates of each father and son. This is the chronological table of the patriarchs. And it shows by every species of analysis that the 10 patriarchs ended with the flood 1656. 1656, Anno Mundi. In the year 1656 of the pre-flood world, the race of Adam was basically destroyed. This is 138 times 12. You guys know. You already know. Archaix veterans already knew about that. Where this land of Syriad was is a great dispute. The name is variously written in the manuscripts as such and such and such and such. What he's talking about are the two giant pillars that were put in Egypt by the Sethites. And in the writings of Josephus, it literally says that they built two pillars in the land of Syriad. And many ancient commentators have written a lot about this reference, and they say Siriad is a geographical reference to the land of the Sirius worshippers. What ancient civilization venerated Sirius? It's called the dog star. Only the Egyptians. So these two giant pillars built in the pre-flood world were built by the Sethites in the land of the Sirius worshippers. This is on the same page. And that Seth was not a name unknown to the Egyptians appears from Plutarch, who tells us that they constantly called Typhon, which was a Greek name, Seth. And hence it is probable Josephus was led into the mistake of ascribing these pillars to the son of Adam. What's being conveyed here is that two giant pillars, and we know this pillar is the word that was before another word was invented later by the Greeks called pyramid. But the original constructions in Egypt were called pillars of bricks. So these pillars, they were called pillars because they were so large, it was believed that they held up the heavens, because that's what a pillar does. It supports something. In the ancient cosmogony, the heavens were not as we perceive them to be. To them, it was like a hammered bracelet. It was glass. It was called the firmament. And the heavens were just as solid as the ground under our feet, according to the ancient model. So these giant structures were considered to be pillars that held up the sky. And the Egyptians couldn't stand Seth. They couldn't stand the Sethites. They couldn't, the children of Set, and they sure as hell couldn't stand Typhon. And many ancient writers tell us they're all the same. There is no difference between Set and Typhon. And we already know that Typhon is synonymous with the Fiend, which is the Phoen-ix. But the fancy of angels defiling themselves with women has been greatly propagated by that forgery we have mentioned above, entitled The Prophecy of Enoch. I've been saying this too, guys. The Watchers were humans. They came down from Mount Ardus. I just recently did a post about this before I even read this book. But the Watchers descended Mount Ardon. And it's all rabbinical corruption. Only in the Jewish and Judeo-Christian faiths do we have angels coming down in ancient times and having sex with human women and giving birth to monstrosities, hybrids, giants. We don't have that anywhere else. It's like Jewish fiction. It's rabbinical fiction. But even in the early Hebrew, and there's a difference between Hebrew and Jewish. A lot of the Hebrew chronological material from 2,000 years ago is exact. It's Phoen-ix dating. It's awesome. Out of Seder Olam. That's 100% Hebrew. It's not even rabbinical. It's 100% just Hebrew chronology, and it is fantastic. But the rabbinical material, it's so laden with all kinds of weird stuff. And one of them was angels having sex with human women. This isn't even in the book of Jasher. The book of the upright literally says it was their judges and rulers that came down and then took for themselves of the daughters of men all that they chose. And then it goes on and says, it didn't say that they gave birth to giants, and it says, and there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that. Yeah, there was 2 times in the pre-flood world that vapor canopies appeared. In both times vapor canopies appeared, it was because of a cataclysm. And in both times, the Watchers descended the mountain after the cataclysm and re-peopled and helped rebuild societies. In both times, vapor canopies created giantism. The cycle is real. Here's a 300-year-old book telling you that the angels didn't come down and have sex with nobody. They were just humans. The book of Enoch is a rabbinical forgery. That water's so good. It's too hot to drink coffee today. The example of these sons of Seth, who, tempted by the allurements of the daughters of Cain, first left their feet of innocence, was afterwards followed by others, who from time to time descended in great numbers from the holy mountain, and took them wives in like manner of that profligate and abandoned race. In the year 1740, this massive book was published, telling you that the sons of the Sethites, a branch of the Adamic race, were hiding in a mountain. When they left the mountain, they were able to go choose any of the daughters that they wanted from the abandoned race of Cainites who were still on the surface. Everything I've been telling you in Archaix, the same thing the elite are doing right now, getting their underground facilities ready. It's all right here. Exact same thing. The Cainite, who've been largely demonized in the Jewish literature, just may have been the holy race, the meek of the earth, who were abandoned by the Sethites, the children of Set, being those representing Typhon. Why would the Cainites represent the Sethites by Typhon, the great red dragon that appears in the sky and destroys the world? Because they were left to that fate on the surface. When Typhon appeared, all the Sethites were gone. They were protected in the mountain. Not the Cainites. They had to suffer through it. Many of them died. They didn't make it. And they weren't able to defend themselves when the Sethites came out with their weaponry, with their armor, their technology. And they were able, the scripture is very specific, they're able to take the daughters of men, all which they chose. Even females that were already married to other Cainites, Sethites could come in and just take them. How is that possible? Because they had superior technology. Their infrastructure was intact. That's amazing. He even called them the abandoned race. The Sethites abandoned the Cainites on the surface. The reigns of these kings, Berosus computes by shars, or decades of years. A decade is 10, which seems to be very, very convenient method in those times, when the lives of men were at least 10 times as long as they have been in later ages, according to which way of reckoning, the sum of all their reigns amounts to 1,200, or more nicely, 1,199 years, which offers no violence to the Mosaic chronology. This author in 1740 is telling you that Berosus' hundreds of thousands of years interpretation is completely wrong, and that the entire sum of history from the descending of the mountain of the Enki and the Anuna, the Sethites, the children of Set, when they came down the mountain and began to rule until their rule was broken with the Great Flood, was, he says, 1,199 years, which is 1 year away from 1,200 years, or it was 1,200 years. That's 432,000 shars. It's 432,000 divided by 360 to get exactly 1,200 years. It's perfect. Somebody please contact Billy Carson and tell him to read this book. Bro, you've got to read this book. It totally smashes that BS you're talking about. There are no Anunnaki crap about tens of thousands of years and kings living for 48,000 years. All that's BS. The entire Anunnaki narrative fits perfectly. Read my Chronicon. All these things fit perfectly. The Ison dynasty, the Kish dynasty appeared 35,000 shars after the flood. The Ison dynasty is founded. Yeah, that means the flood would have had to been 37,000 years ago. That's not the case, though, because biblical scholarship says that the 35,000 years after the Great Flood is actually just 98 years. It's 2101 BC, making the Great Flood to be 2239 BC, exactly what I've been telling you in the biblical scholarship, secular scholarship, all date the Ison and the Kish dynasties exactly where they are, and they don't go by 35,000 years. They go by the day count system. Tell Billy Carson that. It's gotten to be so ridiculous. But this isn't modern scholarship. This is a 300-year-old book. Berosus wrote his chronology by the computation of shars and ners and whatever that Sophie was, which being an ancient measure of time and well known when the original records were written. Didn't I already read this? I did already read this. How did this get back in here? I already read that. Okay, here's the next one. Diodorus Siculus. For Diodorus says, some of the most ancient kings of the succession of the gods reigned above 1,200 years apiece, and that this appearing incredible, some supposed that the motion of the sun being not known in the first times, the year was described by the revolution of the moon. In the days of Diodorus Siculus, 2,100 years ago, ancient writers were writing about a period of time in history when the motion of the sun was unknown. Why was it unknown? How do you not know this big bright object passing across the sky? How do you not measure it and you only use a lunar calendar? And your lunar years are 30 days apiece. How is this possible? The only way this is possible is if there's a vapor canopy and you can't see the sun. So the only thing you can measure time by is at nighttime when the moon goes by, because you can see the moon in a vapor canopy. You can also see the stars. Like Genesis says, every night the canopy came down, condensation, it watered the whole world. There was no such thing as rain. No rain in the pre-flood world. The canopy came down, watered the whole world with super high humidity. Then the canopy raised up. As the sun is up there, but as the sun starts passing over the sky, that whole area of the sky vaporizes. It turns back into vapor. It's the mesosphere, and the mesosphere is packed full of water droplets already. Now all this vapor goes back up. It thickens everywhere the sun goes. It thickens the most. Like a windshield with a hot flashlight on the outside of a cold windshield. It's gonna frost it all. It's gonna steam it all up. It's the exact same thing that the sky was doing. They never saw the sun. They barely knew night and day. But at nighttime, the sky wasn't cloudy. In the daytime, it was. At nighttime, the sky was crystal clear. Why? Because the mesosphere, the water dry. It gets cold. It's a lot colder. All the water contracts and it lenses. You have about 6 mile thick mesosphere full of water droplets that form the largest magnifying glass ever. It's a telescope into the heavens. And at nighttime, the moon filled the sky, and the stars were super bright in all different colors. Everything was magnified. Native American traditions and songs tell us that in the days of Spider Grandmother, they could sing to the stars, and the stars would sing back to them. They put off noises. They could see the heavens. They could reach up. If you could climb a hill high enough, you could shoot your arrows at the stars and hit them. These are the traditions. And here it is right here. 2,000 years ago, writers in Diodorus' day were writing that there was a period in world history when the moon was used to factor the years that the movement of the sun was completely unknown. And I'm telling you now, there's no way that's possible unless everything I've been telling you about is true about this vapor canopy cycle. It keeps coming back. It's a vapor canopy cycle. And he says, and with this, Do other authors of good credit agree, who assure us that the old Egyptian year was lunar? It must only be observed that the antediluvian year containing but 360 days. The above-mentioned calculation must be rectified in that respect. And then the 9,000 years of Vulcan's reign will make just 75 shars. Or 750 years, which seems indeed a little disproportionate to the reigns of his 6 successors, which together can amount to no more than 450 years. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands of years no more. However, this way of computation will reduce this and the other extravagant numbers we meet with in the Egyptian history within some bounds of credibility. 9,000 years of Plato and 9,000 years of Vulcan. Vulcan was the king that some cultures call him Enki in Sumer, Akkad, which are almost the same. Dumuzi in Babylon and Assyria. Etana, also in Sumerian. He's Vulcan. Enoch in the rabbinical. It's all the same individual. Vulcan's reign of 9,000 years. He vanished. He vanished before the flood. But 9,000 years isn't 9,000 years. You already know. It's 9,000 divided by 30. It's crazy. Let's see. So the total of the reigns of their antediluvian princes could not exceed 1,200 years. Not 432,000 years, 1,200 years. Besides, the number of 16 kings seems too large in proportion to that of the Babylonian kings and of the generations of Moses in the same period. It is therefore more conformable to Manetho's chronology to suppose the first 7 only, who he calls gods, and the old chronicle, Archaix, were antediluvians, and that they reigned 1,200 years. This is from 3439 BC, appearance of Enki and the Anuna, to 2239 BC, the Great Flood of Noah. That's the 1,200 years. Now, part of the 1985, the remainder of which will be accounted for hereafter. And this hypothesis seems to be confirmed from the consideration of the last of these gods, Typhon, who probably reigned immediately before the flood and perished therein. So much time has passed that they literally turned Typhon into a pronoun, thinking he was a king who was reigning when the flood happened. But the older accounts show that Typhon is the Phoen. It's the Phoen-ix. Typhon is what caused the Great Flood. The Phoen-ix appeared in red rain, red mud, red dust, earthquakes, volcanic activity, subsidence, upheaval. It was a worldwide civilization-ending cataclysm caused by the Phoen-ix, the return of the Phoen-ix in the year 1656. But by the time these men were writing their records, they mistook Typhon as a pronoun and assigned him as being the ruler who was a king when the cataclysm occurred. Particularly, let's say, now, for several circumstances of the deluge are mentioned in the history of Osiris and Typhon, particularly the very day when it began, or when Osiris, who was taken for Noah, was shut up in the ark. The name of Typhon, according to some learned men, signifies also a deluge or an inundation. So Typhon etymologically is connected to a flood. whence the Egyptian priests called the sea Typhon. So in ancient Egypt, the ocean itself was called Typhon. I think it was called Typhonium or something. And Typhon, or in the Latin poets call him Typhoeus, is represented as a monstrous giant warring against heaven and at last overcome by Jupiter and submerged in water, like the Kraken. Remember, the Kraken was a representative of Typhon during Poseidon worship in 1687 BC. It's the backstory to the sun darkening in the month of May in the Perseus legend, when Perseus rescued Andromeda. One of the things that happens in the Phoenix phenomenon is petrification. Cataclysms cause petrification. This is where we got the story of Medusa, which is an amalgamation between ancient human sacrifice during Poseidon worship of putting a giant squid on a sacrificial victim's face. That turns them into a Medusa. The sacrificial victim that lived looked hideous forever. So this is where we get the story that Medusa used to be a beautiful woman and she was cursed by Zeus and she became hideous and ugly. That's just the mythological overtone. The true story is in ancient times, beautiful women were selected to be victims to assuage the Phoen-ix. And it wasn't just women, men too. And these sacrifices, and a beautiful woman had a squid put on her face, and a squid eats from a beak underneath. It would tear the whole face up. And if the woman was rescued, like in the Perseus Andromeda situation, then that means she lived the rest of her life looking hideous. She became a Medusa. Let's see. All right, let's move on. This is all part of the Phoenix history. Having mentioned the old Egyptian chronicle, it may be proper to acquaint the reader that according to that record, Vulcan has no time assigned him, as appearing both night and day. The sun, who was the son of Vulcan, reigned 30,000 years. After him, Saturn and the other 12 gods reigned 3,984 years. Then the 8 demigods, 217 years, after whom began the 30 dynasties. This is the Manetho account, and everything can be divided by 30. Everything can be divided by 12, because the ancient 360-day year of Egypt was actually 12 years, because every 30 days equals a year. And we have this on so many authorities that I've cited in prior presentations. But now we've already had him say it as well, that the Egyptians counted the year by moon cycles. A cycle of the moon is a month. But what's really fascinating about this, and it's easy to overlook, Vulcan has no time assigned him. Vulcan is the Phoenix. As appearing both night and day, the sun, who was the son of Vulcan. So the sun didn't even exist. It wasn't used as a calendar. It wasn't used to measure anything because it could not be seen. But all of a sudden, Vulcan appears. And after the appearance of Vulcan, when Vulcan is done with his rule, which was 1,200 years, Vulcan appeared in 3439 BC. He's Enoch. He's Dumuzi. He's Etana. He's Enki. Vulcan appears coming down the mountain with his men. They take the daughters of men. Vulcan is an ancient title for Enoch. After 1,200 years, or the people of Enoch, after 1,200 years, the Great Flood happens. This is the 432,000 shars of Berosus. It's 1,200 years. 432,000 divided by 360 is 1,200 years exactly. When Vulcan disappears, all of a sudden, the sun is who? The sun is the son of Vulcan. So the sun comes after Vulcan. Vulcan is the Phoenix. The Phoenix caused the Great Flood. The Phoenix is Typhon. They're all the same. We're literally being told right here from the mythological record exactly what happened. The sun didn't exist, and then all of a sudden it did, but only after the Phoenix destroyed the world. causing a flood. Why? Because it's the day the sky fell. What do you mean, Jason? The sky fell. I'm talking about the mesosphere. All the water in the sky that created a lens effect at night and vapor canopy during the day collapsed. 40 days and 40 nights of rain. And then the sun was the son of Vulcan. That a comet actually appeared at the deluge is attested by several authors. Pliny mentions one which appeared in the reign of Typhon, the Phoen-ix, that is, at the flood, or immediately before it, and speaks of the direful effects of it. Wow. What a commiseration. On the very first day of their decrees, the 17th of the 7th month, or the 2nd of May, they fell so much that the ark rested on the mountains of Ararat. Isn't that something? This guy here shows that the great flood caused by the Phoen-ix, Typhon, the great flood caused the ark to be deposited on the mountains of Ararat. The great flood happening in the month of what? What? Didn't I just do a video called the Merry, Merry Month of what? There it is. Nostradamus said, what month? What month? The month of May. A very great troubling in the month of May. The sky will rain blood. The sun will turn black. All this is in Nostradamus. It's also in the book of Revelation. It's also in the Ragnarok. It's also in the Symbolism prophecies. Here's another pre-flood chart on the kings. I thought this was interesting because, you know, the Nemesis X, this is the Nemesis X number, 792. Maybe it's a coincidence, but according to this chart here, according to this chronology here, Abraham was born in the 792nd year or something. Hebrew, Psalms. This is Septuagint. This is the Samaritan. This is the Hebrew. What the hell is this? JOF. JOF. I don't know. I just thought I saw the number. I circled it. The Hebrew chronology requires that Ham should be the same with Menes, the first king of Egypt, whom almost all other authors make to be Mitzrayim, his second son. Man, this is really compelling. Professor L.A. Waddell in the 1930s and 40s published some books about Sumeria. The first 5 dynasties of the Sumerian civilization are the exact same as the first 5 dynasties of ancient Egypt. And he shows that Sumerian and Egyptian history were all after the flood. His research is absolutely compelling. Many Egyptologists want to push the Egyptian civilization going back, way back to like 2900 to 3100 BC. It's not true. They do that because the pyramids are there, but the pyramids aren't Egyptian. For those of you who are new to my research, I have videos that show you the two different Egypts. And I show you how all the academic deceit in trying to convince you when they're talking about the great city of Thebes and Waset. They're talking about all the ancient Egyptian religions and Osiris and Isis, and they're talking about the amazing Egyptian statues of Memnon and Abu Sir, talking about Edfu, talking about let's see, everything else that's in Waset. Karnak, the great temple of Karnak. All these things are very impressive. You know what's really interesting about everything I just mentioned? They're all deep south Egypt, called Egypt, 450 miles away from from northern Egypt, which is called Lower Egypt, where all the pyramids are. Why aren't there any pyramids in all the Egyptian cities down there? But they're all way up here, isolated away from everything. No, there's nothing there. For a long time, there was nothing there. And then later, after the flood, cities were built there. One of them was called Anu. A-N period N-U. Anu. Anu was later, first called and then it was called Anu, then it was called Heliopolis by the Greeks, where the mansion of the Phoen-ix is, which houses the Bin stones surrounded by phoenix palms. Right there, next to the Great Pyramid. So this is very interesting that Ham, and we know from the biblical narrative, Ham didn't even grow up to be a ruler and a king and have all kinds of things until after the flood. And according to this 300-year-old book, means the first king of Egypt was contemporary with Ham. That puts means after the flood, just like Professor L.A. Waddell says in all his research. L.A. Waddell has some amazing books. Amazing. This is interesting. So Shem lived 502 years after the flood, but he died at the age of 600. Isn't that interesting? Noah was born 600 years before the Great Flood. He was born in the 600th year of Enoch. Yeah. When Enoch appeared in 3439 BC, when Enki appeared in 3439 BC, that started a 1200-year countdown to the Great Flood in 2239 BC. But 1200 years, the famous 1200-year period of the ancients is 2 Ner. It's 2 Sumerian Ner cycles of 600 years, of 360 days each, for each Ner being 216,000 days. The same common denominator found in the Mayan long count and in the Vedic Yuga system. Here we have Shem living to the ripe old age of 600, just like his father, Noah. Noah was born 600 years after Enoch appeared. He was born 600 years before the flood, in the year 2839 BC. In the 600th year of Noah's life, the Great Flood happened. And then Noah died 350 years after the flood. He was a Titan. This is according to the traditional record. But his son lived, Shem lived 600 years. The Hebrew translation for Shem is very interesting. It has 2 meanings. One of them is name. Shem. Yeah, my Shem is Jason. It means name. Yeah, your Shem is whatever it is. Who am I looking at? One Tux. Your Shem is the One Tux in New Zealand. Over there with all your sheep, pigs, and lizards and all that other stuff you got over there in that tropical rainforest listening to me. Nelson Perez, your Shem is Nelson Perez. But it has a double meaning, and the other meaning is monument. A monument that is specifically connotes, it has meaning. So I can build my Shem and place it here as a testimony. And this is what you find in Genesis. When Jacob and Laban decided to enter a covenant, an agreement, a work covenant for his daughter, they built a monument. Because in ancient times, it was tradition when 2 men made a covenant and they built a pillar signified a contract between 2 groups or two individuals. The pillar, as long as the pillar was standing, the contract was still enforced. Process that. As long as the pillar was continuing to stand and nobody had destroyed it, meaning the contract's not null and void, then that means the names of those involved in the building of the pillar were still legally bound to whatever the covenant was when that pillar was created. This is ancient law, and it was all over the place. It's found in Genesis 3 or 4 times. Shem means monument, and it also means name, because your name is on that monument. This is why in the book of Revelation and the Christian mysteries we have, and to he who overcometh will I give a white stone, and on that white stone a new name. And it says, to he who overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God. The Christian mysteries are literally telling you what the Great Pyramid is. The Shepherd of Hermas text outlines it perfectly. A group of souls in this experience agreed to something. Their names were written in the stones of the pillar, and until that contract is fulfilled, that pillar must continue to stand. because that pillar embodies the promise of one group to another if they overcome. To he who overcometh will I give you a white stone in the new name. To he who overcometh will I give you a white robe. That's a new garment. And in the ancient Sumerian, it was called the pala, the P-A-L-A. What was the pala? The pala was necessary in order to go from one world to another. How do we know? Because Ninmah and Ninhursag were not able to pass to the other side in the realm of the dead unless they put on a pala. When they put on a pala, they could go. They could go back and forth through the gates of the underworld and come back. The pala, the white robe, is key to your exit from the construct. But the construct is not going to let anybody go as long as the pillar is still legally binding those who agree to be here. So anyway, I find Shem, having lived 600 years, a Sumerian Ner, is very interesting to me. I need some water after that little rant. Yeah, a white robe is a new avatar. Oldest name in the world for the Great Pyramid of Egypt. If you doubt it, you need to read my very first published book, because I have a whole chapter about the oldest reference to the Great Pyramid in Egypt is always in the ancient writers called a pillar of brick, the pillar of God, the pillar of Adam, the pillar of Enoch. It's always there. It's the pillar. It's the monument. Actually, it's also called the Shem. So, an ancient Coptic inscription in Egypt. I-Sorid, the king, built the pyramids in such and such a time and finished them in 6 years. He that comes after me and says he is equal to me, let him destroy them in 600 years. And yet it is known that it is easier to pluck down than to build. And when I had finished them, I covered them with satin and let him cover them with mats. He's bragging. He's literally saying, I constructed these pyramids, these two pillars. I constructed these pyramids in 6 years, but you aren't even able to destroy them in 600 years. I covered them in satin, which is like a reference to how smooth and beautiful the original white limestone casing blocks are. But he's literally telling everybody that follows him, you're not able to do that. You're not able to put those casing stones on like I did, but you might be able to do it with mats. So read. Here's an old illustration in the book I found pretty interesting. This is a 300-year-old illustration. Somebody asked about the Philosopher's Stone. I have videos about that, showing what the true meaning of the Philosopher's Stone was, and the Jewish intrigues going on during the Middle Ages and the Renaissance period, when they invented the whole alchemy system as a way to move money throughout the empire and not be blamed for the Jewish wealth. How Jewish alchemists were able to show kings a lot of gold, and they claimed to be making it, and they would give the kings back when all the gold was literally being stolen from the populations of all the kings of Europe. That was a scam. We must not omit to say something of the human sacrifices which are said to have been offered by the ancient Egyptians, as red oxen were allowed to be sacrificed because of their resemblance to Typhon, who, it is said, was red-haired. So men of that complexion were reported to have been slain in former times by their kings at the tomb of Osiris. But few of the Egyptians having red hair, strangers were the usual victims. Whence it is supposed the fable so current among the Greeks of the cruelty of Busiris to strangers took its rise. What's being described here is that the children of Set before the flood are the children of Typhon. They were a Caucasian race that hid in the mountains from the Phoen-ix. After the Phoen-ix and after Nemesis X destroyed the surface world, they came back out of the mountains, and it was a non-Caucasian race that stayed on the surface, and they couldn't oppose the Caucasian infrastructure, technology, and strength. When they came out of the mountains, they had their weapons and everything. This is why Genesis is very specific. That they came down and took the daughters of men, all which they chose. And because this was after a cataclysm, a vapor canopy was created. Vapor canopies are brought and vapor canopies are taken by the Phoen-ix. So we have same as 522. The Great Justinian Darkness was the beginning of a vapor canopy after the Phoen-ix appeared. 1687 BC, the Great 25-year Darkness of the Old Bronze Age, recorded in both hemispheres. Again, a vapor canopy appeared after the Phoen-ix. The Phoen-ix destroyed the world. So yeah, the children of Set. This is another reason why in ancient Egyptian records, the pre-flood Caucasians were called the Shining Ones. They were called the Shining Ones. This wasn't a reference to gods. It was a reference to humans that had white skin and gemstone eyes, and this was very peculiar to the very dark-skinned, black-eyed Egyptians. The children of Set. And you already know Phoen-ix was red dust, red rain, red mud. So they made the association that red-headed Caucasians were responsible for the Typhon. And they further associated red-headed Caucasians to Phoen-ix and Typhon because they disappeared every time the cataclysm was coming. And they reappeared after the cataclysm was gone. And when they reappeared, they were always very strong. So I find it very interesting that I live in Texas, and here in Texas, there's a ranch that's produced some flawless red heifers, and Israel has procured some of these red heifers from Texas, and the whole red heifer sacrifice that we're told about, man, we're told about it's to satisfy the blood sacrifice of Yahweh and the law and all that. We're told some BS. The real reason is because the red heifer is a substitute for the red-headed Caucasian. And the Jewish sacrifice of the red heifer, in there, the ones that really know what's going on, they're literally wanting the Caucasian race to be the victims of the Phoen-ix phenomenon. This is what they want. This is what the symbol of sacrificing the red heifer is all about. Here it is from a 300-year-old book. I'm not making it up. Men who also in old times sacrificed at Heliopolis and to Juno or Lucina at a city in the upper Thebai, called by the name of that goddess, who was worshipped there under the form of a vulture. These human victims were to be approved of in the same manner as the calves that were searched and sealed as clean. And 3 were sacrificed every day at a certain season in the dog days. This is the serious time. Being burnt alive and their ashes scattered abroad. Sound like the Phoen-ix? To these unhappy men, they gave the epithet of Typhonian. I'm not making this up. The red heifer, sacrificing the red heifer in the temple of Jerusalem, is linked to ancient sacrifice of Caucasians to thwart or to minimize what the Phoen-ix is going to do. They're sacrificing these men. And the sacrifice is even like a Phoen-ix phenomenon episode because they are burned alive. What happens? What is Phoen-ix? Phoen-ix is a bird of fire. What is it linked to here? A vulture. Every bit of this. All these symbols are telling us what was really going on in the ancient world. And what was really going on in the ancient world was these cultures were capturing Caucasian men and women, sacrificing them to the Phoen-ix to try to save their countries from destruction. Can't say I made it up. They even called the human sacrifices victims Typhonian. Can't make it up. Dear old dad's in the chat. Man, yeah, you know what? Before I get to this next one, let me tell you about dear old dad. Hey, son, you want to go with me to the VA hospital in downtown Houston? I just need a ride back. I'm gonna have a whole bunch of anesthetics in me. I need a ride back. We'll be gone by noon. This is my dad. Just come pick me up at 4 a.m. in the morning, and I'm gonna go in there by 8. They're gonna prep me. A 2-hour operation and 1 hour to come off the anesthesia. It'll be good to go, and we'll come on back. He knows I hate Houston. He knows I hate Houston traffic, but that's dear old dad. And 12 noon, that's not much of a sacrifice. I get up early anyway. I get up, go pick up dad. We go all the way down there. I hang out in the VA. I hang out in the VA hospital. Oh, I'm fresh meat. I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of men that got a bunch of stories to tell, and because they've already told each other, I'm bearing the grunt of it. So noon comes around, I'm ready to go. Dad ain't nowhere to be found. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5. I'm in the VA's hospital 5:30 in the evening for something I was supposed to be home by noon. By the time he gets out and we're driving away, we are stuck in the worst Houston. We are in the butthole of Texas. Houston, Texas is the butthole of Texas. I can't stand it. I can't stand being down there. I don't want to drive down there. I don't want to be in that traffic. I live way north of Houston in Willis, Texas for a reason, because I like being out in the country and I hate traffic. Yeah. That's dear old dad. That's dear old dad. That was my day yesterday. Man. Anyway. Thank you, Pops. Oh, he's given an example, and here it is, 285 years ago. He's given an example of all these references. Billy Carson, pay attention. All these references in ancient texts are to be reduced by the lunar reckoning. There's no way that Vulcan to Alexander is 48,863 years. He says that. He says, no way. He says from the reign of the sun to Alexander is not 23,000 years. Everything is to be reduced by lunar reckoning the same way we reduce Solon and Plato's 9,000 years. Just reduce it. Divide. All you got to do is divide it by 12. That's it. So simple. An Egyptian year is 30 days. In a 360-year period, you've got 12 periods of 30 days. So it's 12 years. Anyway, it's a good list. All these different authors, all these different ancient writers cite all these impossible numbers, and they all make sense under Egyptian lunar reckoning. All right, so okay, so now he's talking about the 5 days that were added to the calendar. The 5 days added to the calendar. We had 360 days, and then in the reign of Numilius Pompus Numilius, whatever his name is, Numilius Pompus, 713 BC, he changed the calendar and he added these days. In Egypt, these were 5 intercalary days that were added. Suddenly added after 2,000 years of history, they suddenly add 5 days. The 5 days were called Osiris, Isis, Typhon, Apollo, and Venus. Imagine that. Didn't I recently share an ancient Greek legend that Apollo and Gaia conspired to do away with Orion and his cohorts? and to usher in a new solar zodiac, and they did. Here's another link to Apollo appearing in 713 BC. So we have also their origin and generation differently reported by various authors, and with the several particulars related thus: Sol, surprising Rhea, the sun, surprising the earth, Rhea, in a private congress with Saturn, prayed that she might not be delivered in the space of any 1 month or of the year. Soon after, Mercury, smitten with love of the goddess, embraced her also, and beating Luna at dice, took from the lunar year the 72nd part of every day, and thereof composed 5 days, and added them to the year of 360 days, that she might be brought forth in them, and these the Egyptians celebrated as the birthdays of Osiris, Isis, Typhon, the Phoen-ix, Horus, and Nephthys. Nephthys is the daughter of Phoen-ix. So here's what I find compelling here. They describe the event as, because the lunar year was now changed, somehow the gods took some part of the lunar year and gave it to the sun and added 5 days. And these 5 days are linked to both Apollo and Venus. And remember, Venus is phonetically the same as Phoen-ix, and Typhon, the Phoen-ix. So one Amosis, this is an Egyptian king. One Amosis is also said to have abolished the custom of sacrificing men to Juno at Heliopolis, and instead of them to have substituted waxen images. They were examined and sealed like pure calves, and were called Typhonians. So here are fake Caucasians. Mannequins were created. They're still called Typhonians, and it's the mannequins they kill. 3 of them were burnt in a day, and their ashes were scattered abroad. Same thing as the Phoen-ix. The ashes of the old world become the fertilizer of the next. And this was attached to Sirius worship, the dog days. So crazy. We observed in the last note that Edomite is one of the civilest names they give to the Christians, and the Talmudists make no scruple to call Rome and Italy the bloody empire of Edom. To make out this odious appellative, some pretend to omit many other impious absurdities, that the soul of Esau passed into that of Jesus of Nazareth, that the Edomites were therefore the most forward to embrace his religion, which they carried and settled at Rome. Now, and thence into Italy. So calling the Romans and then Roman Christianity Edomite, it actually has some pretty ancient roots. I did a video about it. How many of you remember my video where I was showing the repetitive timelines of Rome, going back to the days of Zepho, when the Edomite, a branch of Edomites actually under Zepho in the 16th century BC, settled in ancient Italia, and they intermarried among the Etruscans, and a lot of the roots of ancient Rome came straight out of Edom. I have a video called Repetitive Timelines of Rome, which shows, I show the text, I show crazy, how weird it was that the Great Libyan, in the days of King Turnus of Italia, this massive war broke out between Italia and Libya in the 16th century BC, and it totally mirrors the Punic Wars. The Punic Wars were also North Africa against Italy. It's like repetitive timelines. Anyway, it's a good video. I might need to bring that video back to the table. Chapter 6, the history of the Phoenicians. The tract we commonly call Phoenicia is more accurately Phoenice, which, being sufficiently known to the learned, we shall not multiply words about it, but hasten to what is more material. Whence it borrowed this name of Phoenix. It's pronounced Phoenix. Phoenix is not, this is where we get the modern city of Venice from. Phoenix is not determined. Some derive it from one phoenix, others from the Greek word phoenix, signifying a palm or date, as if that tree remarkably abounded here. Some again suppose that Phoenix is originally a translation of the Hebrew word Edom from the Edomites. I don't know about that. That's what it says here. We return now to the Israelites in Egypt, who did so prodigiously increase both in number and strength during the 215 years of their abode there. That's fascinating to me. That's fascinating to me because the Israelites were in Egypt 400 years. And a lot of people assume that they were slaves for 400 years, but they weren't. In my Chronicon, I show that the complete years that they were actually indentured servants of the Egyptian was 215 years. That's what I showed in Chronicon, and here it is in this book right here. But in this book, it says that they abode in Egypt 215 years. But actually, they were there 400 years, according to the chronology. So during the 215 years of their abode there, that the jealous Egyptians had already long ago looked upon them as dangerous, as if not formidable people. This goes with the traditional interpretation of the ancient Israelites as being the Hyksos, which makes them Amorites, which is exactly what Genesis says. Genesis says that the ancestors of the Israelites were actually Amorites and Hittites. However, we think with many learned moderns that the word is derived from Carab. This is talking about the statues of the bearded crowned guys, Assyria, that the Lamassu which were also called the Caribs. In the Bible, they're called cherubs, but they got wings on the sides. It says, we think with many learned moderns that the word is derived from Karab, which in the Syriac, Chaldean Arabic signifies to plow, according to which Carab or Cherub doth often imply a strong man or beast. And as the ox is known to be very, very proper for agriculture, both on account of his strength and docility, the authors above quoted have made no difficulty to believe that the cherubims here spoken of resembled them, if not in the whole, at least in face and some other parts of the body. To these we may add the authority of an ancient father who believed that the Egyptian Sphinx and other hieroglyphical beasts were borrowed from those of Moses and Ezekiel. And indeed, Moses seems to hint at least, that the cherub work, which was embroidered on the veil and curtains within the Holy of Holies, was full of such symbolical figures after the manner of the famous Phrygian tapestry. Whether, therefore, these took the hint from Moses or he from them is not very material. Either supposition may be allowed without any harm. In the first, Moses might thereby design to intimate the excellence and office of those spiritual beings. And if the latter, it might serve to expose the folly of their Gentile worshippers, seeing they were being represented as mere servants to the God of Israel. In this chapter, he is linking the cherub with the fiery flaming sword that blocked Eden with the Phoen-ix. Excuse me, with the Sphinx that guarded the two ancient pillars, the two great pyramids. He's thinking the Great Pyramid complex may have been Eden, and the Sphinx was originally a cherub that was protecting that area. This goes with the Gnostic interpretations of like the guardian Kalapatoroth. So, let's see. And no, I'm recording right now. Let's see. Was full of such symbolical figures after a manner of the famous Frisian tapestry. Whether therefore these took the hint from Moses or he from them is not very material. Frisian. Lost my train of thought with that knock on the door. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Also, the Ark of the Covenant having two cherubs out there. He's also associating those cherubs to be representative of the Sphinx in Egypt before the Great Pyramids. It's making some pretty interesting connections. To see that the Jews did not reckon by or had even a name for hours before the captivity, that the invention of gnomon dials is reckoned of a much later date, it being attributed to Anaximander, who did not flourish to almost 200 years after Hezekiah. And lastly, that there is not a word of a sundial in all the writings of Homer. What? Remember what happened? Well, I've told you guys in prior presentations, it was a 300-year Great Mediterranean darkness. It is a period that is so obscure all over the world, it's just called the Great Mediterranean Dark Age. And it started because in the 12th century BC, there was a systemic collapse all over the world. And the very first authors are Homer, Hesiod, Theognis. They write these fantastic epics, and all these epics are based off of taking world history, but it's like a cartoon. It's all mythological. There's nothing really serious about it. And it's because infrastructure and literacy had completely collapsed for at least 280 years. The Great Mediterranean Darkness. Homer, Hesiod, and Theognis are the three oldest Greek compositionists. Not a single hint of the zodiac is in their writings. And yet right here it says there's not even a word in the Greek world. In the early Greek world, didn't even have a word for sundial. In all the writings of Homer. Why is that? Because they just came out of a vapor canopy. That too was a vapor canopy world. Only once this was the destruction of Atlantis, 1135 BC, and then it was 790 to 800 BC before Homer appeared and Hesiod appeared and Theognis appeared. We're starting to fill in the blanks and all everything that happened throughout history. There's whole periods of time when the sun was unknown. Herodotus, that venerable and much injured historian, observes that the Assyrians had been masters of the Upper Asia 520 years when the Medes threw off their yoke, and that the empire of the latter subsisted no longer than 150 years, inclusive of the 28 years during which the Scythians ruled Asia. These two sums added together amount to 670 years for the whole duration of the two monarchies of the Assyrians and Medes, which being added to the epoch of Cyrus before Christ, which is universally stated at 559 years before Christ, BC, will make 1,229 years. The whole interval between the first rise of the Assyrian monarchy and the birth of Christ. Where have you seen these numbers? An empire that lasted 670 years and another one that lasted 1,229 years. Where have you seen those numbers? What did Nostradamus say? Until 600, many will die before the Phoen-ix dies. Until 670 years, his habitation shall endure. We'll get to that 1,229 years in another video. That's going to blow your mind. As for fishes in particular, they are said to have been revered by the Syrians, or the Assyrians rather, not only on account of the metamorphosis above, but also because they were said to have favored one Derceto, a daughter of Venus, who happened to fall into the sea, or because she took refuge among the fish when she fled from Typhon. It is said that Venus and Cupid being in Syria on the banks of the Euphrates, the giant Typhon came suddenly upon them and made them jump into the river and they took on the form of fishes to save themselves. In short, Venus and Cupid are said to have been translated into the zodiacal sign called Pisces. Again, from the Middle East, we have the appearance of Phoen-ix, the Typhon, a solaric anomaly involving Venus, 713 BC, with the appearance of a constellation for the very first time, which was the constellation Pisces. I'm not making this up. Aries through Pisces didn't appear as a zodiac in our world until after 713 BC. When the year changed from 360 days to 365, the sky shifted, and ancient writers said that the planet Venus came so close to us, it filled the sky and then went away. All of it happened at that time. So the reason this is, I put pull right here, this event where the constellation Pisces was invented because of the appearance of the Phoen-ix and the change of the year and the convulsion of Venus. The reason I put pull here is because in this book from 300 years ago, he said this event happened in the reign of Tiglath-Pileser. He said the dynasty of Tiglath-Pileser. And in the Bible, Tiglath-Pileser, the Assyrian king, is the ruler called Pul. P-U-L. All biblical scholars will tell you, Pul is mentioned many times in the Old Testament. Pul is the Hebrew designator for Tiglath-Pileser, the Assyrian king. He reigned in the 7th and 8th century BC, when the constellation Pisces appeared for the first time. There's more ammo on my zodiac thesis. Don't hate me, hate the book. This goddess is said to have been produced from a vast egg, which being rolled out of the water by the fish of the Euphrates, has hatched by a dove who sat thereon. This must be the primogenial egg mentioned by Heliodus. When I read this, the first thing I thought of was, wait a minute, we have ancient Egyptian reliefs of a snake about to eat an egg. In America, in North America, we have a huge effigy of a mound of a giant snake in the form with a curving tail, and the snake's mouth about to open and eat an egg. And according to this, in all the alchemical treatises from the Renaissance period and the Middle Ages, I've showed them on my channel. We have these beautiful eggs and a serpent wrapped around the egg and all that. According to this, the egg was a symbol of the goddess. And that makes sense because the egg is also a symbol of fertility. It kind of makes me want to go back to my Occultus Mysterium collection of old alchemical woodcuts and bronzes and illustrations, and go look back at that and go isolate all those egg references, because I think those are clever references to the goddess. Thus far, then, we have showed it highly probable that the great Jupiters and other gods and goddesses of mortal origin are to be derived from the banks of the Euphrates and Tigris, and that, instead of being so ancient as mythologists and historians make them, they began not above 771 years before Christ among the Assyrians, who first erected themselves into what we call a monarchy, as is generally confessed, though falsely for the most part. He's literally telling us that all the gods of the zodiac, this is what this whole passage is about. Pisces and this episode involving the change of the year, everything during the reign of the very end of the Assyrian Empire. He's literally telling us that the names of these planets and the names of these constellations and all that cannot be any further back in history than the Assyrian dynasty in the 7th century, 8th century BC. This isn't for me. This guy right here in a 300-year-old book is telling us right here. It's crazy. I couldn't believe it when I found that. Ptolemy, we may perceive, could discover no king of Babylon older than Nabonassar. That's Nebuchadnezzar. And therefore begins with him, and the scripture mentions no king of Assyria before Pul, who appeared on this side of the Euphrates about 23 years before the first year of the canon. Yeah, I don't know what his point here is, that the Assyrians and the Babylonians were one people, and it was just different dynasties. Citing Diodorus and Lucan. Okay, talking about Atlantis. This is talking about Atlantis. And this poem fell into the hands of Plato, who relates out of it that at the mouth of the straits near Hercules' Pillars, there was an island called Atlantis, the people of which 9,000 years before the days of Solon reigned over Libya as far as Egypt and over Europe as far as the Tyrrhene Sea. And all this force collected into one body invaded Egypt and Greece. And whatever was contained within the pillars of Hercules, but were refisted and flocked by the Athenians and other Greeks. Refitted and stopped. The water. And whatever was contained within the pillars of Hercules were but resisted and stopped by the Athenians and other Greeks, and thereby the rest of whatever. Anyway, I found this really interesting because the reason I want to bring this to your attention is because we're often told by people who promote Atlantis and the 9,000 years deal that Plato got it from Solon. It's not true. They weren't even alive at the same time. There's over 150 years between them. So Plato never, first of all, Solon got information from ancient Egyptians who didn't know the information outside of what they thought they were accurately translating an inscription. So the information was on a wall in 600 BC concerning an event in 600 years earlier. But it's two different types of Egyptian writings between the 12th century BC and the hieroglyphic was no longer even used in 600 BC. Well, I think it was later Demotic or hieratic. Might have been Demotic by then, but it wasn't hieroglyphic anymore. So we have a problem. They're relating this story. Did they relay it correctly? They told it to Solon. But we have another problem. The chain of custody is broken on the information, because now we find out that Solon was the one that went to Egypt to acquire this data from the priest who acquired it from the pillar. Okay, all that's good. But Plato didn't get it from Solon. He got it through other sources that claimed it came from Solon. That's a problem. Here, Diodorus and Lucan say that it was a poem that fell into the hands of Plato. That's a problem. That's a total break in custody, in the chain of custody of information. It's another reason why we know that there was no Atlantis in the whatever BC. You guys already know there's no Atlantis in the Younger Dryas. It's BS. Too many ancient authors told us that the 9,000 years was actually 9,000 moons, which lowers it to the 13th century BC, exactly when Athens was there. And that's the whole point of the Atlantis story. Well, it was the Atlantean war against Athens. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. Man, I would be embarrassed to be Graham Hancock. I would be embarrassed to be Jimmy Corsetti and all these others that are still promoting this. The whole war was against Athens. How are you going to say Athens was in the Ice Age period, man? It's crazy. It blows my mind. Blows my mind. All these citations came from a book published in 1740, and all they do is verify everything I've told you from all these sources, me using a calculator, all the other research I've done. But there's still one page that we have to explore. There's still one more page that we got to go through because it earned its own video. It's got to have its own video. I already have a file on my desktop right now for this video. It's very compelling. I will re-show the title page for this 1,147 page book published in 1740. I'll re-show the title page when I show that page in this other presentation because I got to add charts to it. It's going to be an awesome video with all kinds of stuff showing simulation theory is what our historical record literally shows us. It's amazing. That's my presentation from this book, guys. I'm just excited about finding all this data. More zodiac data, more data on the 7th century is when the year changed. Now we have an actual king who is named, and we can look him up in encyclopedias and all that. We can find out, yep, that's right. He was the king in 713 BC. No wonder the ancient records say he changed the calendar from 360 to 365. It's amazing material. It's amazing to get all this just collaborating material from a PDF of an old book that most people have been ignoring. So kudos to the individual who posted it on X on my feed so I could find it. Thank you very much for that. That was awesome. Absolutely awesome. I'm so glad I got to read that book. That book gave me 2 videos. It was worth reading the whole 1,100 something pages. It was worth it. So announcements, Cypher's over with by midnight. And the three main links everybody's trying to download, they're in the description box, guys. But yeah, Nelson Perez, Chronicon is growing. Even after my publisher gets all these Chronicons published, I'm going to have to publish supplemental versions because I just got so much new data coming in. And I got a file right here. Let me look at this file. 23. I have 23 files in this folder right here of all the new Archaix Academy courses that are about to be released. Because I had to go through a 4 terabyte drive and just get all this material, collate it, put it together, and I'm about to start posting new Archaix Academy deals because in September we have a guy making us 300 coins. I may have to make more than 300 coins, but I got 300 antiqued nickel, awesome new coins. Remember the Archaix coins? Those are vintage. If you have one, you have the only ones. We're not doing this. We're never going to do that mint again. Well, those 300 coins are special. I have one somewhere. I got to find it for you. But some of you have the Archaix coin. I know you do, especially my mods. But we have a new coin coming out, a medallion, front and back, antique nickel, and it's only for those who graduate the Archaix Academy course. So there's 26 courses available right now. They're all on archaix.com. All you got to do is look in the menu. It says Academy. Go to Academy. Every link works now. Every link pulls up the course. But you have to graduate. You don't have to take every course, but you got to take what's on the syllabus. The syllabus is on the website, and you'll get your certificate, Archaix Academy. You'll also get a massive drive full of all kinds of Archaix. You are actually going to be accredited to teach Archaix data once you graduate that course. yeah, we'll kind of set you up with your own little whatever you want to do. And the coin is fantastic. And of course, we got to show our errant ad one more time before we go. Thank you, moderators, for being there. I might troll X here in a little while. I got a few things to post. Tomorrow I'm going live with the Cypher community. Let's see. I got a few people to reach out to do some podcasts with. But let's go and see. Let's have a word from our sponsor. I hear it, but I don't see it. What's going on? Oh, hold on. I see what's going on. Anyway, I love you guys. I'm going to check out.
Exceptional results. Build engaged teams without the burnout. It's not luck. I know because I've been there. When you connect to your deeper inner purpose of life and you embrace your free spirit, you unlock true leadership. Break free or die trying.
There is an object hidden in the sky. It has been here many times. In ancient times, it was known as the Phoen-ix. It is approaching perihelion. It is located at 23.5 degrees north of the ecliptic and is presently in descending node. On May 15th, 2040, it will return. On May 16th, our world will be a very different place.